Now, the thing is this, everybody always asks, well, who is Satoshi Nakamoto? And that's the big mystery. There's all sorts of theories out there. Well, Satoshi Nakamoto could be actually a collection of people. Doesn't necessarily have to be one person. But I have this interesting theory. I don't know how accurate it may be, but it's a theory. My theory is, isn't it possible that maybe Charlie Lee is Satoshi Nakamoto?
One of the biggest mysteries in the technology world is the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, the computer programmer who invented the digital currency Bitcoin. That's because Satoshi Nakamoto is a pseudonym. It may be the name of one person or the name of a group. But for over 9 years now of Bitcoin's existence, no one has figured out who or what Nakamoto really is.
Charlie Lee, as most of us know, is the inventor of Litecoin. He's a great guy, he's accessible, he's all over Twitter. He's a humble guy as well. And now he went to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. He's had a very successful career. He actually worked for Google, and he left Google, and he's actually now went to work for Coinbase, which is the largest exchange in the United States on which you can actually buy Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. And here's why I say it. It's number one because it's this, I think he wanted to create Bitcoin and see whether or not it was going to work and then be accepted, which it was. But then he realized what the shortcomings of Bitcoin were once it started working. So what does he do? He creates Litecoin. And now he can put his face and his name to something. Because technically, and I'm hearing it being said more and more, while Charlie likes to call Litecoin the silver to Bitcoin gold, I'm starting to hear more and more people say that actually Bitcoin is like MySpace and Litecoin is like Facebook.
So Satoshi Nakamoto is the creator of Bitcoin. He took, or she took, several different technologies that existed at the time and created this combination that provides the fundamental innovation behind Bitcoin, which is the ability to have global consensus on a distributed ledger without any third party, without any central authority, without any center of any kind. The first completely decentralized form of trust that is based on network, the first network-centric trust platform.
Right, which is a very important concept. So right away, you didn't think currency, you thought this is a network.
I read currency, but then when I see how it works, I realize, well, in this case, it's much more. And the reason it's much more is because if you just flip it around and think of it from a different perspective, currency is almost like an app. Like you have a decentralized trust ledger where you can record the ownership of something. Well, the most obvious something you can record the ownership of is a system of digital cash. But that's not the only thing you can record ownership of. And so once you read that, you're like, okay, you've done digital cash, but if you have this building block, you can make so many other things. You can register assets, real estate, do governance, voting. The list is endless.
Is this the blockchain?
This is the blockchain and its decentralized consensus mechanism behind it.
Okay. Which is maintained by people who then do the mining of the Bitcoins.
Yes.
And that's kind of how it's paid for in a way.
Right. The easiest way to explain it is this. If you are introduced to the internet in 1992, you may make the obvious mistake of assuming that email is the internet. And for a very long time, email and the internet are indistinguishable. It's not until 95 that the web comes along, and when you have two major applications on the platform, that allows you to see the platform. Until then, when there's only one application, you confuse the application and the platform. Bitcoin, the currency, is email. It's not the real invention. It's the first application of that invention. So Bitcoin as a whole is not just money for the internet, it's the internet of money. And currency is just the first application on the internet of money. And there is a whole set of applications that we can build on top of that. So when I read the paper, that's what I started realizing. This is a platform, and on top of it, you can build decentralized trust mechanisms. And currency is the obvious first application. And that alone is huge. Don't get me wrong, it's absolutely huge. but it's not even the beginning.
In 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto published a 9-page white paper containing the first ever mention of Bitcoin, calling it a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. At this point, Bitcoin was just an idea on paper. But in 2009, Nakamoto put the concept to test, releasing the cryptocurrency's first software. Nakamoto was active those first few years, writing in forums, sending emails, and working with other developers and coders to improve the program. That all changed in 2011, when Nakamoto essentially vanished. No more forum entries, no more emails. And in all that time, nobody, not even close collaborators, ever met the founder in person. But here's the thing. Whoever it is, they didn't walk away empty-handed. Nakamoto is estimated to have 1 million bitcoins, which, as of today, is worth over $5 billion.
So, for a moment, forget everything you think you know about Bitcoin. Forget everything you've heard about blockchain, and let's start from basics. In 2011, I heard about Bitcoin for the first time, and my reaction was exactly the same as the reaction of everybody else who heard about Bitcoin the first time, including its founder, and that reaction was, ha! Nerd money. That's probably just for gambling. 6 months later, I heard about Bitcoin again. And this time, I read the white paper that launched this system. And my background in computer science and distributed systems allowed me to see behind the illusion of what I thought Bitcoin was, and it blew my mind. In my life, I have now had 6 occasions in which I have become absolutely obsessed with a system of technology to the point of forgetting to eat, forgetting to sleep, and consuming as much knowledge as I possibly can. My first computer, when I was 10 years old, my first programming language experience, my first modem, my first access to the web, the first time I used the web browser, the first time I downloaded and installed the Linux operating system, and then Bitcoin. When I've discovered it, I spent 4 months consuming as much as I could, except food. I lost 26 pounds on the highly inadvisable diet of obsession. I have not emerged from that because I keep finding new layers of depth to understand this. And the reason it's so fascinating is because it isn't what it appears to be at first glance. Bitcoin isn't money. The blockchain isn't a system of currency. It is a platform of trust. It's not a company. It's not a product. It's not a service you sign up for. It's not a currency. Currency is just the first application. It is the concept of decentralization applied to the human communication of value. Because what is money? InQ told us it's an illusion. It's imaginary. And the reason we don't grasp that is because it's so deeply embedded in our civilization. Money is one of the oldest technologies that humanity has. It precedes writing. How do we know that? The very first samples of writing we have are spreadsheets. They are tallies and ledgers of debts owed, and money pre-existed that writing. You might even speculate that money had an oral tradition until it needed to invent a written tradition, so writing was created for it. In the history of money that now spans tens of thousands of years, there have been maybe 5 major changes. From pure barter exchange to the introduction of the first abstraction of value, shells, feathers, beads, nuts, stones, and then precious metals, and then paper money, and then plastic money, and now network money. Bitcoin introduces a platform on which you can run currency as an application on a network without any central points of control, a system completely decentralized like the internet itself. It is not money for the internet, but the internet of money. And what is money? Money is a language. Money is a linguistic abstraction. Money is a language that we use to communicate value to each other. Money simply allows us to express value, and that value may have economic consequences, but it also has other consequences. We use money to express and create social bonds and relationships and associations and to create organization. Bitcoin is the first system of money that is not controlled by any entity, that is completely decentralized. And what that does is it introduces the very same things that the internet brought to communication. If money is speech, if money is a language, and you disconnect it from all other media, and you make it pure speech, pure content, an internet content type, a protocol designation, money over IP, it completely separates it from all of these previous notions of nations, sovereign issuers, institutions that control. And so we go from institution-based money to network-based money. And of course, everyone will welcome this with open arms. Not a chance. What do you think they said the first time someone was presented with a gold depository certificate instead of a gold coin? They said, "That's not money. Go away." What do you think happened in 1950 the first time someone showed up at a motel and presented their Diners Club membership card and said, "I'll pay with this piece of paper"? That's not money. Go away. And now we're on the verge of a new transformation of money. We're on the verge of creating the first completely global, completely borderless, completely decentralized, and completely open form of money. One where you can build applications because this money is programmable. And you don't need to ask anyone's permission to launch an application any more than you need to ask permission to launch an application on the internet. And the only requirement to have a successful application on the internet of money is 2 interested participants. That is your market segment, and you have an application. And 1 million applications will flourish. When you push innovation to the edges of the network, when you remove the requirement for permission, what happens? Exponential explosion in innovation. the applications that could not be built on the old systems of money because they required permission, because they required a significantly large market segment, because they required adoption by many in order to be available at all. Now, none of those requirements exist. Anyone in the world can download an application or use even a feature phone with text messaging and immediately acquire the same powers that institutions of banking have today. And when I say anyone, that's only scratching the surface. Because ironically enough, not only does Bitcoin and blockchain currency not recognize borders, it also does not recognize people. It doesn't matter if you're a person or a refrigerator or a self-driving car. Throughout the history of money, ownership of currency required personhood, either as an individual or as an association of individuals in a corporation. Bitcoin can be owned by machines. Bitcoin can be owned by software agents. Machines can pay each other. And that is not just about economic activity. It's the basis for market-based security systems. It's the basis for creating bonds of authentication between devices. It's the basis of new applications that have never been done before. Bitcoin and blockchain technology unifies the systems of money. Today we have systems of money for small payments, systems of money for large payments. We have systems of money for payments between individuals. We have systems of money for payments between companies. We have systems of money for payments between governments. Does that remind you of something? That's how communication used to be before the internet. We had systems of communication for pictures, systems of communication for letters, systems of communication for short distance and long distance, and the internet came and unified all of those. What the Internet of Money does is it creates a single network which can do a microtransaction to a gigatransaction in seconds, anywhere in the world, for any participant without permission. But if you just look at the application of money, you're missing the point. Because you can take the language, the building blocks of this platform, and use them to construct other languages that communicate value. Tokens, reward points, brand loyalty coins. Today there are over 1,000 digital currencies using the design pattern, the recipe of Bitcoin. Most of them are junk. Some of them are not. And over the next decade, we are going to see tens of thousands and then hundreds of thousands of coins. Some will have economic use, some will simply be expressions of loyalty, affiliation. They will represent items in the physical world, the title for a house, the controlling key for a car that can be transferred from one owner to another, and 5 seconds later that owner can step into the car and drive away because the car can validate the new standard of ownership. We cannot yet imagine what applications we're going to build around this. But one of the interesting things we're beginning to observe is that money arises out of the social construct of Homo sapiens spontaneously. It even arises in primates. You can teach monkeys money. You can teach dolphins money. You can teach greys, parrots, money. And they will learn how to exchange abstract tokens for food and then use them to build social relationships. They'll also invent strong-arm robbery. Beat up the other monkey, take away its pebbles, eat the bananas. And we see that same thing happen in children. Toddlers invent money in kindergarten, blocks and rubber bands and Pokemon cards and other little tokens, abstractions of value that they exchange to strengthen social bonds, to express loyalty and friendship, to learn about sharing. Children will be building currencies. Only this time, these currencies will be global, unforgeable, and scalable on day one. A few years from now, Maria will be launching Maria Coin in her kindergarten to compete against Joey Coin. And it won't really matter to anyone. Until, of course, Justin Bieber launches Justin Bieber Coin, and it happens to surpass the market capitalization of 30 nations on this planet. And we are all writing horrified opinion editorials about how the world is going to hell. What's happening with this technology is astonishingly deep. And for certainly some of the companies in this room, it's a bit scary. Banking has never been the most innovative sector in the world because there is a very careful balance between innovation and the conservative fiduciary duty that exists in banking, that must exist when you control other people's money. And yet with Bitcoin, you don't control other people's money. In Bitcoin, I control my money. I have complete and total authority over my Bitcoin. It cannot be seized, it cannot be frozen, it cannot be censored, my transactions cannot be intercepted, and they cannot be stopped. And I can do so with almost complete anonymity, and so can anyone 5 minutes after they download an application, and money has changed forever, and banking has changed forever. The idea that you can proceed in the industry of money, in the industries of commerce, and maintain the same conservative attitude that has existed now for centuries, ever since merchants in Venice and Amsterdam started issuing depository certificates and providing banking services. That is gone. That is gone. You cannot operate closed systems that have borders and require permission to join at a rate of innovation that is controlled by the most conservative tendencies within your organization, because now you are competing with a technology that enables exponential growth, exponential innovation at the edges without permission by anyone in the world. And it's not about anyone in this room. Why? We represent the privileged elite. I can go onto a brokerage account, open it up online, and be trading on the Tokyo stock market within 12 hours in yen. That is the privilege that I have. 1.5 billion people have that privilege. 6 billion people can operate mainly in one currency and perhaps have some basic banking services. 4 billion people are significantly underbanked, and an astonishing 2.5 billion people are completely unbanked. They will leapfrog. They will never have a relationship with a bank. Every single child born today will never have a bank account. They will have a bank app. A bank app that doesn't give them an account, a bank app that makes them a banker, an international banker in an app. They will not be permitted to open a bank account until they're 16 years old. By that time, I hope they will have at least 6 or more years of experience with digital currencies. And I would like to watch them walk into a bank branch to have someone explain to them what 3 to 5 business days means. It is highly likely that children born today will never get a driving license because they'll have self-driving cars, but they will also never use paper money. Because by the time they get to an age where they really start using money, there is no paper money. It will seem as anachronistic as a fax machine or horse and buggy seems to us. Exponential innovation on a global basis, giving access to the other 6 billion. They have enormous need, and this system offers them a solution. It's not ready yet. It's nascent. It's complex. It's impossible to use for most people. In 1989, I sent my first email. In order to do so, I had to compile a version of the Unix mail program using a C compiler and Unix command line skills. I had to set it up on the command line, type out my email, and that email was transmitted across the great internet in an astonishing 3 days. Exactly 20 years later, my mother replicated that experience with a swipe. Bitcoin today and all of the currencies that are built on that recipe are just at the same level that the internet was in 1991. Only now we have the internet.
Either way, the whole crypto community is just an amazing opportunity. It's changing the world. It's changing the way we do business. It's bringing freedom, and it's the democratization of global money. Because I see that every time these cryptocurrencies go up in value, that's a vote against traditional government-issued fiat currency.